Hank Mulligan hadn't planned on finding a glowing naked woman face down in his cornfield that Tuesday morning. He just wanted to refill the gas in his tractor and maybe fix the broken fence by the creek. Instead, he nearly dropped his thermos when he saw her, tall, purple-skinned, with long silver hair and what looked like a glowing tattoo of a spiral on her bare thigh. She sat up, blinked twice, and locked eyes with him like a deer sizing up an oncoming pickup. She didn't speak at first. Just tilted her head and sniffed the air like a bloodhound. Hank adjusted his cap, unsure if he should call the sheriff, the vet, or the preacher. "You all right, miss?" he asked. She nodded solemnly, then spoke in a perfectly clear but weirdly formal tone. "My name is Teatria of the Fifth Fertile House. You found me. That makes you my chosen." Hank scratched his beard. "I just came out to check the irrigation pipe. I ain't chosen nothin' but a bad breakfast burrito." The woman stood, tall as his barn door, and looked around like she was taking in the whole world. She glanced at the rising sun, then at his corn rows. "Your land is moist. Productive. And you are durable." "I thank you." Hank took off his jacket and held it out. "You might want to cover up a bit. We don't usually do the whole birthday suit in the cornfield thing around here." She looked at the jacket like it was ceremonial garb, then put it on backwards and clasped her hands together. "It is done. I am yours. You will not regret this plowing." "Whoa, whoa, whoa," Hank stammered, backing up. "Ain't no plowing going on. At least not the kind you're thinking, Dot." She took a step closer, serious as a tornado warning. "Your hospitality is accepted. I will begin the laying cycle shortly. Lady, I don't even know what that means. Look, I got a spare cot in the barn. You can rest up, figure out who dropped you out of the sky, and we'll go from there. No need to start laying anything just yet." She brightened at the word barn. "You offer shelter to a fertile guest? On the first day? It is official then. We are bonded. I shall call you husband." Hank muttered a string of words not printable in the local paper. "You can call me Hank. That's plenty." Teatria followed him to the barn with wide-eyed wonder, occasionally stopping to touch things like a wheelbarrow or his scarecrow, whispering reverently, "Primitive beauty." By the time they reached the hayloft, she was already rearranging bales like a nesting bird on meth. Hank tried to distract her with cornbread and a jug of lemonade, but she ignored the food and focused on the walls. "Strong structure," she said. "May withstand up to 32 orbs." "Lady, you're setting up like a damn hen," Hank muttered. "Ain't no orblaying going on under my roof." Teatria tilted her head again. "I sense confusion in your speech. Do you not understand? I am a prime egg carrier. I was dispatched to this planet due to your agricultural aura. My people observed your farm from orbit. Your soil called to me. Only thing my soil calls for is better fertilizer and less raccoons. You are modest. The fertility output is above baseline. I detected optimal plow patterns, nutrient dispersal, even consistent milking rhythms." Hank blinked. "Now hold up. Who told you about my milking schedule?" She placed a glowing hand on his shoulder. "You need not be shy. I appreciate your stamina. You have seeded your land well." Hank stared at her, half convinced he was dreaming and half convinced she was crazy. Maybe both. "You know what?" he sighed. "I don't have the energy to argue. Sleep in the hay. I'm gonna go pretend this day didn't happen. But I swear, no more of this husband talk. I ain't signed up for no cosmic nuptials." But she was already lying on a makeshift nest of hay, murmuring something about incubation waves and hatchling dreams. Hank walked back to the house, shaking his head. "Damn aliens. Can't even land on the coast like normal folk. Gotta drop naked into my cornfield, talking about laying cycles and calling me husband like it's a job title." That night, he tossed and turned in bed, dreams full of purple women whispering sweet nothings about crop rotation and soil acidity. By morning, things were weirder. Much weirder. The barn door was locked from the inside. When he finally pried it open, he was greeted by the smell of ozone and warm honey. And the sight of 12 basketball-sized glowing orbs lined up in perfect formation on the hay floor. Tia stood beside them, hands on her hips, looking proud. "Our first clutch," she announced. "They respond well to your barn's aura." Hank dropped his coffee mug. "You laid eggs? In my hayloft? While I was sleepin'? What in the hell kinda twisted omelet dream is this?" She pointed to the eggs. "They are ours. You opened your shelter. I opened my clutch. The union is complete." He paced back and forth, hands in his hair. "Lady, I let you crash for a night. I didn't marry you. I didn't even high-five you." She blinked. "High-five? Is that your species' form of genetic confirmation?" He stared at her, lips parted, eyes twitching. "You know what, I'm gonna need more coffee. And maybe some therapy. Possibly exorcism." One of the eggs made a soft, gurgling noise. Hank nearly fainted. Tia beamed. "They recognize your voice, husband. You have strong paternal aura." He backed out of the barn, mumbling. "Nope. Nope, nope, nope. This is why I stopped drinking tequila. I knew this would happen again." From the porch, his dog watched the barn and let out a soft whimper, as if to say, "This is your mess now, Hank." And deep in the barn, under glowing hay and humming eggs, Tia hummed an alien lullaby, and began preparing the second batch. Hank stood in the kitchen pouring his third cup of black coffee, hoping it would kick reality back into place. Maybe he was hallucinating. Maybe this was some government simulation. Maybe that purple woman in the barn hadn't actually laid glowing eggs like oversized gumdrops. But deep down, Hank knew better. When your barn smells like lavender and static electricity, and your guest hums lullabies that make your chickens faint, something's off, and it ain't the coffee. By the time he worked up the nerve to check again, the barn had become busier. 12 eggs had become 20, and Tia had constructed a nest using everything from hay bales to Hank's favorite flannel shirts. She stood over them in a trance, arms raised, whispering things in a language that sounded suspiciously like someone trying to seduce a fax machine. "You can't keep dropping space dumplings in my loft, lady," Hank said, trying to assert some kind of authority. "That there's storage for grain, not galactic baby pods." She turned to him, cheeks flushed with a silvery hue. "Do not fret, husband. The laying cycle is stabilizing. The last few may be slightly larger, but they are healthy. They resonate with your aura." "I don't have an aura," he snapped. "I have high blood pressure and arthritis. That's about it." She nodded solemnly. "Ah, yes. The male humility complex. You resist your virility. It is charming. Listen here, Thyre. Tia. Right, whatever. I gave you a place to crash, not to hatch. I didn't sign up for this. Hell, I can't even get Netflix to work in the house, and now I'm hosting an alien maternity ward." She stepped forward, her voice soft. "You offered me sanctuary. On my planet, that is an unbreakable vow. You opened your doors. I opened my reproductive centers. It was mutual." Hank's ears turned beet red. "Well, I didn't mean for you to go full omelet in there." Behind her, one of the eggs cracked slightly and let out a burp. Hank stumbled backward, knocking over a bucket of feed. "Oh Lord, they're waking up. They sense your presence. You should name them. I should be calling the CDC." Meanwhile, his chickens had stopped laying altogether, probably out of fear or intimidation. One of the hens had started trying to sit on the alien eggs, only to be politely electrocuted. The rooster had developed a nervous tic and spent most of the day staring blankly at the wall. Tia had taken to calling Hank mate of the soil, now, which was only slightly better than husband, but not by much. She followed him around the property, taking notes on things like his tractor's vibrations, the compost's aromatic maturity, and his preferred method of fence repair. She once asked him if his shovel was for ritual digging. Hank choked on his sandwich. At the general store, things got worse. Hank made the mistake of mentioning to Bobby and Dale that a lady friend, was staying over. He didn't elaborate, but he didn't need to. By sundown, half the county had heard Hank was shacked up with a 7-foot nudist he'd found in the cornfield. The local Facebook group exploded. The preacher dropped off pamphlets. A young reporter from the local college drove 3 hours just to ask if he was hosting an interdimensional breeding pod. It didn't help when Rhea showed up at the feed store wearing one of Hank's oversized overalls, asking loudly if they had incubation hay for hybrid offspring. Hank pulled his cap down low. Ignore her, she's European. I am from the Vreeland spawning constellation, she added helpfully. Back at the farm, things escalated. The eggs now pulsed gently in the barn, giving off enough heat to toast a loaf of bread. Rhea began painting glyphs on the walls using a mixture of sap and something she secreted from her palms. Hank didn't ask. Every time he tried to go near the eggs, she would gently redirect him. They are delicate, husband. Do not trample your own future. I'm not their dad. We never even, look, we didn't do nothing. You just showed up and started laying, she finished, with a proud smile. Yes. Your silence was consent. I was stunned. She nodded. You are humble. You did not even boast of your fertilizing potential. Hank groaned. Lady, all I did was hand you a corncob and a jacket. She blushed. Yes. So generous. So fertile. That night, Hank lay in bed with his pillow over his head while faint gurgling came from the barn and Rhea sang lullabies that made the windows buzz. He thought about calling NASA. Maybe animal control. Maybe the church. The next morning, he stepped outside and found one of the eggs had rolled out of the barn and into the chicken coop. The hens formed a defensive circle around it. When Hank tried to retrieve it, they pecked at his boots and screamed like they were guarding the Messiah. Rhea stood nearby, arms crossed. They recognize it as superior. You have noble chickens. I got traumatized chickens, he muttered. And I'm getting real tired of being called husband by a woman who thinks my cow is a sacred idol. She provides white plasma, Rhea said reverently. It is revered where I come from. You mean milk? Yes. The sustenance fluid. Her glands are bountiful. I think I'm gonna faint. Rhea stepped closer. Husband, you are pale. Shall I massage your life force centers? You may be underpressurized. He held up a hand. Touch me and I'm gonna scream loud enough to wake your glowy egg babies. She frowned. You reject nurturing. Perhaps it is mating season yet? Lady, I haven't mated since Bush was president. She blinked. Which one? He threw his hands up and stomped off toward the tools shed. This is why I stopped talking to strangers. Behind him, one of the eggs cracked open, releasing a faint chirp and a puff of lavender steam. He didn't look back. He didn't want to know. But Rhea did. She picked it up lovingly and whispered, Your father is stubborn but strong. He shall teach you to plow. Hank had hoped this madness would die down, but the barn kept glowing brighter by the hour. He tried putting up blankets to block the light, but all that did was make it look like he was running some backwoods rave. The postman asked if Hank was doing okay, while delivering a letter addressed to Father of the Future, Rural Sector 9. Hank didn't know what unnerved him more, the title or the fact that it arrived postage paid in an envelope made of some weird leaf that hummed when touched. By Wednesday, he had 32 eggs, 3 cracked open, and 0 idea what he was supposed to do. The barn was a nursery, the chickens were in hiding, and his tractor wouldn't start because Rhea had dismantled the ignition coil to study the energy coiling ritual. She claimed it was crucial research for preparing their children to operate Earth chariots. When he asked her to put it back, she tilted her head and said, You said it was broken. I fixed it. It now runs on condensed fog and goat farts. I don't have any goats. Then we must acquire one. It didn't help that the local vet came snooping around again, claiming he'd received an anonymous tip about unlicensed exotic livestock. Hank tried to wave him off, but the man insisted on inspecting the barn. The second he stepped inside, he let out a yelp and slipped on what could only be described as alien amniotic goo. "What in God's soggy name is that?" he shouted, trying to wipe the slippery film off his boots. "That's private matter," Teatria said proudly. "You are stepping in the love fluids of my incubation." Hank almost swallowed his own tongue. The vet stood there, stunned, staring at the glowing orbs and the now hatched ones hopping gently across the hay like gelatinous otters with antennae. "What are these?" he finally managed. "Our spawn," she replied. "From my husband." "Whoa, whoa, whoa," Hank cut in. "No one's proven anything. We ain't done nothing. I didn't even sneeze in her direction. You gave me shelter and organic grain. That is courtship on my world." The vet nodded slowly, blinking like a man trying to process a dream while being hit by a leaf blower. "Right. I'll just go file this under unspecified biological anomaly and, forget what I saw." He slipped again on his way out. That night, Hank tried to sleep but couldn't. Too many sounds. Soft hissing from the barn. Alien coos. One of the hatchlings had learned how to use the door latch and wandered into the kitchen looking for Father Juice. Hank gave it Pick O'Brien and told it to sit still. At sunrise, 2 black SUVs rolled up his gravel road. Government types. One wore sunglasses inside the barn, another carried a handheld scanner that beeped every time Teatria exhaled. "We've had reports," one agent said, "of unnatural atmospheric readings coming from your property." "You mean the barn glow?" Hank asked. "Yeah, that's the alien love eggs. They're kind of loud." The agent paused. "I beg your pardon?" Hank exhaled slowly. "Look, I didn't ask for this. She landed in my field, called me her husband, and laid 32 of those bad boys in my hayloft. I just wanted to fix my damn fence." The agent took out a tablet and began scanning the barn. "We've been tracking these energy spikes for weeks. Your property is now classified as a site of critical fertility." "I'm sorry, what now?" "You have been designated a Tier 3 Earthbound paternal candidate." Teatria looked thrilled. "I knew he was exceptional. Your government recognizes his virility." "I'm gonna need bourbon," Hank muttered. The agents attempted to contain the situation with what looked like a mobile lab, but it didn't last long. One of the hatched offspring hacked their mainframe with what appeared to be mental whistling and repurposed it into an incubator for Teatria's next batch. She had already started laying again. "Ma'am," the agent stammered, "you are in violation of 17 planetary incubation codes." Teatria smiled. "But we are on Earth. I am following his codes. He permits free-range laying." "I never said that," Hank shouted from the porch. "She just keeps doing it." The second agent was busy talking to a drone camera when he made the mistake of touching one of the unhatched eggs. It immediately latched onto his palm and began absorbing nutrients. His hand turned mildly green. He screamed, then tried to politely excuse himself. Teatria calmly pulled the egg away and kissed it. "It thought you were the uncle. It was confused." "It's a damn glow ball," the agent howled. "No need to shout," she replied. "You are scaring the embryos." The government agents left with a formal warning that further reproductive anomalies may result in orbital intervention. Hank told them if they had a tractor mechanic, send him instead. That night, Teatria brought Hank a plate of something purple that smelled like roasted mushrooms and battery acid. "What is this?" "A meal. For your efforts. You are a good host. Our children are thriving." "I'm not a dad," he muttered. "I'm a farmer with no peace, no eggs from my real hens, and a property value dropping faster than my blood pressure." She blinked. "But we are successful. Your barn has become the most productive unit on the continent." Hank looked outside at the glowing silhouettes hopping in the yard. One of them waved with all 6 limbs. He waved back, almost instinctively. "You know what?" he said, sighing. "I never liked quiet anyway." She leaned in. "Would you like to begin the next fertilization cycle?" "Nope. But the eggs respond to your voice." I said nope. She tilted her head. Maybe after breakfast? I'm changing my name to No. He didn't sleep that night either. Not because of fear, because he was starting to feel weirdly proud. It was the middle of the week when Hank finally realized what had happened. It wasn't just the eggs or the glowing barn or the alien-wrapped holidays in his living room. It wasn't even the weird, creepy-crawly creatures that kept appearing in his kitchen. The problem, he realized, was that somehow, Rhea had convinced him to stop caring. She'd turned his life into a barnyard sitcom, and he was no longer just a straight man. He was an unwilling lead in an absurd reality show, sponsored by the universe's weirdest farmers. When he woke up the morning after the last government warning, he found himself staring at a new batch of glowing eggs. Rhea was humming softly to them like they were her children. Well, they were. But Hank wasn't so sure if they were going to graduate into barn chickens or start a new religion based on grain. Rhea, he muttered, rolling out of bed. What the hell happened to my life? I had a normal farm. Now I'm stuck with egg-filled madness and the strangest damn woman to ever crawl out of a cornfield. She smiled serenely, looking far too at peace for someone who had just introduced him to a full-blown alien baby farm. I have given you purpose, husband. You should be proud. You are now responsible for an entire generation of great thinkers. These children will one day solve the problems of your planet. Yeah, Hank grumbled. Mostly they'll be solving how to ruin my life with their glowing slime and their overeager mother. I heard that, she said without missing a beat, her antennae twitching. He shook his head. I'm not your husband, and I sure ain't a father. You are a father, she countered, pointing at one of the smaller eggs as it wobbled. This one is your son. He is very wise. I can already hear him asking for more input on intergalactic trade agreements. Does he even know what a tractor is? Hank asked, half-heartedly. He will, she said with a knowing smile. When they hatch, I will teach them the ways of your land. They will be farmers. It is destiny. Hank pinched the bridge of his nose. Destiny. Right. That's what you're calling this mess. I believe it is your fate to be the father of a new species. At that, Hank walked outside, hoping the fresh air would reset his brain. A couple of the weird alien chickens were walking around the yard, mimicking his every move. One of them pecked at a rock and looked at him with a confused expression, as if it was trying to understand how a human could exist without a glowing egg-laying cycle. I don't even know what's happening anymore, Hank muttered to himself, kicking at a pile of old hay. The chickens followed suit, staring up at him like he was some kind of alien god. As if on cue, Rhea appeared at the door with 2 more eggs cradled in her arms, looking delighted. The next batch is almost ready, husband. They're going to be perfect. We must be prepared for them. You mean like for the awkward dinner party? Hank replied, turning to her. Are we having a whole meet the family moment? Should I get tuxedos for my chickens? Please, she said, rolling her eyes. The intergalactic wedding ceremony is a sacred bond. But you're not ready for that yet. I don't think anyone's ready for any of this, Hank muttered under his breath. She raised an eyebrow. You may joke, but you have embraced your role. You will be known as the universal fertility farmer. Hank felt a chill run down his spine. Oh no. This ain't happening. There is no universal anything. I just want my damn crops to grow without any more glowing babies or government agents knocking at my door. Rhea smiled again. Do not worry. You will learn to appreciate the beauty of the cycle. Look around you, your land is fertile. It has never been this productive. At that moment, a UFO zoomed down from the sky, hovering above the barn like a pesky bee. The hatch opened, and out stepped an entire delegation of the most peculiar-looking aliens Hank had ever seen. They looked like someone had mixed together a squid and a cactus plant, with purple skin and tentacles instead of legs. Hank let out a loud groan. Great, now we've got visitors. Do not be upset, Rhea said, taking his hand and leading him toward the new arrivals. These are my relatives. They are here to help with the harvest. The alien delegation had no words for Hank. They just stared at him with what appeared to be deep respect. One of them floated toward him and handed him a bundle of strange green seeds. "These seeds," Teatria said with pride, "are from the 5th fertile house. They will help your crops reach new heights. We can now grow whatever you desire, faster than you can say fertilizer." "I don't know about this," Hank said, taking the seeds with one hand and nervously scratching his head. "You've already made my cornfield a breeding ground for intergalactic chaos. I don't need any more weird experiments." "You will see, husband," she said softly. "The land calls for this." As the alien group dispersed, starting to plant the strange seeds in Hank's fields, the first of the newly hatched alien chicks started to walk toward him. They chirped and flapped their slimy little wings, their 6 legs moving in a clumsy but synchronized dance. Hank watched them, dumbfounded. One of the chicks rubbed its head against his boot affectionately. "Well, hell," Hank said under his breath. "Guess I'm a farmer now. To aliens and chickens alike." He stood there, staring out at his now glowing farm, filled with weird creatures and even weirder government officials watching from the trees. In some strange, cosmic twist, Hank realized that the life he had once known was over. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a father, not just to the farm, but to an entire generation of hybrid alien creatures that would carry on his legacy, whether he liked it or not. A few hours later, one of the alien chicks waddled up to him, chirped loudly, and plopped a small glowing egg at his feet. It was as though the universe was giving him one last cosmic reminder: "You are the fertility farmer, Hank Mulligan. Welcome to your new life." "Yeah," Hank sighed, looking at the egg. "I'll go get the whiskey. This calls for a celebration."